Come on, Livingston, we're gonna go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We're gonna go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, you score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Hello and welcome back to Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club. As usual, Ewan joins me, and as if by magic, Callum Brown returns for this special review and preview episode.
What a downgrade. What a downgrade.
he's not a Callum with two L's, is
Nah,
he?
exactly, just downgrading ourselves to one L this week. But you know,
Nice to be back.
Welcome back, Callum.
take what you get, eh?
But on tonight's podcast, we're going to take a look back at Wednesday night's game with Motherwell at Fir Park, before looking ahead to welcoming Steven Gerrard and his table-topping Rangers team to the Tony Macaroni Arena.
It's time now to look back at Wednesday night's game with Motherwell at Fir Park, a notoriously difficult venue for us in the past, made even more daunting by our poor start to the league campaign. Things are looking up though, as a first point on the board following a creditable 2-2 draw in this one. Much more happy about that one, guys, aren't we?
Yeah, it was night and day to the previous two performances. I think we were much more Livy-esque in terms of hounding our opponents, being better all over the park than our direct opponents, I felt. And we were the better team. And you could argue we were a bit unfortunate not to win the game.
Yeah, I'd probably say a draw was just about right. I think if anyone was to nick 3 points, we would have probably been the team that edged it. I mean, first half, Motherwell had 2 efforts on goal and scored twice.
Yeah, that's the only frustrating element.
I mean, both goals defensively, we really need to waken up a little bit because Fitzwater's got caught on the ball for the first. Totally misread the flight of the ball, which has allowed them to pick it up, and then the second one, I don't want to sound like I'm picking on him, but I think his tackle was a bit powder puff on the edge of the box, and Campbell's managed to turn in the box and get his shot away. But we reacted well. That's the best bit about it. We reacted well. Ricky Lamie with a great assist.
Well, listen, he's
helping us out.
I've always been a big fan of Ricky, as you all know.
Just for the sake of listeners, Andy has the biggest cheeser on his face right now, as if he's been proved right with Ricky Lamie.
Well,
but
listen,
maybe he just really enjoyed his time at Livy.
absolutely.
Maybe he just really enjoyed it.
Callum,
And he wanted to help us out.
you were obviously at the game commentating. What did you make it live? It's always difficult watching the game on the TV in terms of how we're lining up. We actually talked about it last night, you and when we're at the game, it's easy to see how we're lining up, but on the telly it's difficult.
Because normally you can just scan the park and you
so it looked like back to a 4-2-3-1.
It was, yeah. I would think it was. We obviously started with Fitzwater at right back. I think it was Brown and Guthrie centre half. Because the way we lined up, I was looking at the team like, you've got 3 left footers in there, and I thought it was a bit of a weird one. And you've got 2 natural right backs in McMillan and Devlin on the bench. But I mean, it worked to an extent. Obviously, we went 1-0 down, but Brown obviously had to come off. Ambrose came on to right back. Didn't think he was great personally, but I mean, again, did a job in the end. But I think what we went back to is, speaking of Gary Holt, he was he was fuming after this the game on Saturday.
Nah, you could tell that in his post match. It's the angriest I've ever seen him after the game.
Basically, just said to the players, we need to get back to being that sort of in-your-face team, the grit and determination, and sort of what basically the foundation of the club that we've built the last 3 or 4 seasons. Obviously, it's made a big thing now. Look where we've come and all that. But like that's why we've got here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not the best team at playing football or whatever, but we would very, very rarely be beaten in hard work and desire and things like that. And that was missing from the first 2 games. But now, it seems we're back and we're sort of getting in players' faces and hunting in packs. That's a big thing.
I think when the lineup was announced, there was some confusion in terms of what we're doing. I think I originally thought was there potential for Alan Forrest to be playing wing back and still playing that 3 at the back. Some people were thinking that, others were saying Fitzwater at right back. That is the one thing I don't quite get in terms of the lineup, is playing a centre back at right back when we've 2 perfectly good right backs. We've spoke about it in the last couple of weeks in terms of playing players in their positions. You've got McMillan, who everybody's really impressed with last season, not really featured much, obviously came on late against Motherwell. And you've got Devlin, who everybody was excited about having back after his sort of long-term injury, sitting on the bench, and you're playing a centre back at right back. Doesn't quite make sense, does it?
It's maybe just a bit of rotation, because there's a lot of games this month, to be fair. And maybe he's just trying Fitzwater out. Obviously they know what they get with Devlin and McMillan. They've worked with them now for a good couple of years, right? Whilst Fitzwater's maybe still a bit of an unknown quantity, so it's maybe just try to almost feel him out a little bit and see where they see him in his strongest position. The thing I really enjoyed last night, I thought we looked brilliant going forward.
We did, yeah.
I think every time we got the ball and went and attacked them, I think we genuinely looked like we could score. It's one of the most threatening displays I've seen from us away from home, actually.
Again, that goes hand in hand with what we've been saying though. We've got men in around the ball.
We touched on it when we were watching the game last night, how when Dykes was getting the ball, there just seemed naturally there was bodies in and around him.
I agree.
And I thought as the game wore on, Pitts in particular was really, I think his fitness levels were basically starting to show, and he was the main kind of support to Dykes. But first half in particular, Robbo and Forrest on either side were, every time Dykes got the ball, they were in and around him to go and feed off him. And
I thought Dykes was excellent.
I was just going to say, I think that the fact that we had men in and around him helped Dykes out a lot. We spoke about it the previous 2 games in terms of being a bit toothless up front, not creating very much. Dykes being isolated. It couldn't have been further the opposite against Motherwell. We had men in and around him flicking the ball on, holding the ball up, bringing players into play, bringing the midfield into play. I think all in, it was a much better performance.
Pick of the bunch for me was Sibbald though. I thought Sibbald was, again, arguably one of his best performances I've seen from him as well. Despite the fact he picked up the yellow card fairly early doors, about 20 minutes in or whatnot, it didn't. Sometimes that can affect a centre midfielder, kind of pulling out of challenges and breaking up the play and stuff like that. But he managed the game so well last night, and with Sibbald and Bartley sitting, because Bartley's so rigid and he'll constantly kind of sit and protect, it allowed Sibbald even to spring forward every now and then, and that's what happened for the equaliser, the second goal. It's basically Sibbald played the 1-2 with Pats.
Great football.
Yeah, it's a great little bit of play. But that's what I mean. Sibbald almost has that little bit of freedom sometimes to go and break away from the kind of 2 sitting players, and I thought he was genuinely brilliant last night, Sibbald.
You mentioned there about Dykes, I think, and you mentioned bodies getting up and things with that 4-2-3-1. I thought Dykes was absolutely excellent as link. I don't know, again, you mentioned about the sort of not being able to see the full pitch and stuff, but just even off the ball, he was working so hard and bringing other players into play with one effectively every flick on. And I think, okay, he's only, well, you could argue both his goals are penalties obviously, but again, he's still got to remain calm from the spot. But even his play last night, he looked back to his best. I don't think he was at his best against St Mirren. He was sort of outmarked by McCarthy and Shaughnessy, and then again Porteous and Hanlon sort of, I wouldn't say had him in the back pocket, but I mean, he was probably, again, not winning as many aerial duels and not winning as many flick-ons and things like that and holding the ball up. But
see, even
last
when you don't,
night he was so much better.
When you don't even win the flick-on, sometimes it's just putting the pressure on the centre half to not win a clean header, and then you can pick up the second balls. But with the formation we're playing, I think it naturally suits a number 9 like Dykes being a lone striker, because as we've been touching on, you get bodies in and around, if you look back to when we played 3-5-2 coming up, when we had Miller and Hardy, for example, right? Hardy had someone naturally to work off in Miller, right, as the kind of target man, but there was two up all the time, rather than kind of one with someone floating in and around like Forrest does. And I didn't see that as Forrest's natural position. I thought he looked 10 times better out wide in the wide areas, picking up the ball and kind of beating his man. And a couple of times he left Ricky Lamie for dead on the right hand side. But I think the system we looked so much more at home last night in the way we played.
Much more comfortable. You mentioned Forrest, he was the next one I was going to come to. I thought he was excellent as well. Taking on his man, beat him a few times, caused him no end of problems, and grabbed obviously his first goal for the club. Really good goal, obviously in the right place at the right time, but the build-up play was sensational, wasn't it?
Pitts and Simmons on that side, it was brilliant.
I mean, we are obviously criticised week in, week out for our style of play, and we've just scored a goal that any club in the country would be proud of. You know, where's the praise? You know, I mean, we've heard very little about the goal.
To be fair, they touched on it on Sports Scene. I watched Sports Scene and they mentioned it was a good bit of football.
Even before then, you sort of saw flashes of it. I think we were in the corner and worked the ball very well between the likes of Dykes, Robinson, and I think it ended with Sibbald.
Yeah, I think he should have squared that
just
one,
to the front post.
Looking back at that in the highlights, he should have squared it to Pitts in my opinion. But
and again, we could have won it at the end. Again, another Dykes holding the ball up well, sort of 1-2 with Pittman. Pittman plays him through, he holds off Mugabe, and then
there was so much of that. There was so much of that unlucky. In the game, the 1-2s and the flick-ons and the hold-up play, bringing people into the game. It was honestly, I said at the beginning, it was night and day compared to the first two games in terms of how we played. But just to go back, I don't know what to turn it into a negative, but we'll go back to the goals we're conceding, because that's now 7 in 3 games. Defensive lapses. You know, we've built our foundations on being solid defensively. What's going on there? Is it a matter because we've changed that around, we've brought new personnel in to try and bed them in? Are we scapegoating Fitzwater a little bit? Do we need to give him a bit more time?
I would say so. He's the guy's okay. Was he 23? Like, should obviously know defending and things like that. I'm not going to slag the guy off. I've been on record praising him and stuff. I think he looked excellent in pre-season. It'll be just getting used to the formation. I mean, he played right back.
I think as the game wore on, he got better, to be fair to him. I mean, there was one, again, it was kind of a misreading ahead our second half where they lobbed McCrory and Guthrie cleared it on the line. That was his only kind of real lapse second half. But other than that, I thought he was fairly solid. Look, the game's different up here.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Right, I think folk don't give it the credit for the pace it's played at. And maybe he'll be adjusting. He's not... Yes, he's had a couple of loan spells at Forest Green and Walsall and stuff like that, but he's still not played an awful lot of first team games. He'll still be learning his trade, and yes, he's played with the likes of Guthrie and whatnot before, but again, he's only played
he's probably not been when he 23, he's probably not been an actual first team regular, because you mentioned the loan spells, he's not been playing men's football like week in, week out. So I mean, I think it will come. I do think it will come. I think he'll...
I can see he's got attributes. Big physical presence, he's decent enough on the ball, etc. for a centre half. And I think he just needs a bit of time to settle. And I think he will come good.
Play him in his natural position. That could help. Play him at centre back. I know he moved in, didn't he? I think he
looked better. Second half, definitely.
I think I can almost let him away with the first one. He's misread a ball in the air. It happens. The second one annoys me a little bit more because he's the attempted tackle is pretty horrendous, to be fair. It's not Livingston, and I'm sure the management team are looking at that and saying the same thing to him next time. Just put your body on the line and go right through your man. That's what we do here. In that position, just stop the play.
I think there's also an aspect of the defensive side of things. Even from the pre-season games, it's kind of tweaked a little bit game by game. You had, Callum, correct me if I was wrong, but it was like Guthrie, Fitzwater, Ambrose for the first couple of games. With, can't remember who was at left wing back, but then Brown came in for the Kelly game once he was kind of confirmed signing, and then it tweaked for the St Mirren game, and we played the same setup for the Hibs game, and then we've changed the whole setup again. So typically we've been able to almost pick our team. normally, or at least the centre half pairing or something like that. But that's last season was kind of similar. The centre half pairing, I said quite a lot last year, it was disrupted quite a lot.
Yeah.
With players coming in and out, and I think it just needs to get a pairing, if we're going to stick with 4 at the back, a pairing settled and playing pretty much every game together, because I think that's one area on the park you need a consistent pairing to kind of build up that consistency, and you start to learn what your other centre half's good at and what the other one's not weaker at, and etc. I think that's needed.
Obviously to go away for that negative in terms of defence, it was great to see us back pressing in groups and hunting in packs. I mentioned it watching the game. There was an instance, I think it was about 80 minutes in, 3 of our players hunting down 2 Motherwell players, forcing errors, winning throw-ins and attacking positions. Much more like Livingston, isn't it?
Yeah, I touched on it earlier. That's what we're all about, really. It's what's got us here. Hard work, desire, things like that. Hunting in packs and put Motherwell under all sorts of pressure. They like to sometimes they went long last night, but Stephen Robinson tends to pride himself on this young squad and playing really nice fancy dancy football and all that. But if you shut them down, they're not allowed time to play that, and I think we did that last night, and they ended up resorting to the sort of physical long ball that he sort of berates other teams for. So I think we were excellent last night in that vein.
Hopefully we can carry that sort of form on into the Rangers game on Sunday.
Next up, it's a big one, a home tie against Rangers at the Tony Macaroni Arena, as Steven Gerrard brings his Rangers side to Livingston following 3 wins on the bounce in the league without conceding a goal. But, as we just touched on there, a much improved performance on Wednesday saw us pick up our first point of the season. Can we take those positives into this one and cause an upset?
I hope so, because I hate Rangers. To put it bluntly,
every time we're coming to reviewing or previewing a Rangers game, it just becomes a Rangers hate podcast, doesn't it?
Look, I don't hate Rangers, I despise them. I'm really hoping that we can take that into the game and obviously cause an upset. Rangers look like they've started the season, they've been fairly comfortable. I think the Aberdeen game, bits I saw of that, I don't think they got out of second gear. I don't think they really got out of second gear for St Mirren, and the St Johnstone game, only saw the highlights, but again it didn't look like they had to do an awful lot to win the game, so I think they've had quite a relaxed start. Hopefully our pitch can upset them in many ways. I'm sure Gerrard's presser on Friday will be all about the pitch. Talking about our physical nature and wanting to protect these players and all this sort of stuff. So, but I think Gerrard knows the game he's in for, because I saw the subs that he made in the St Johnstone game, and it was like Jack, Aribo, Morelos all coming off early doors. So he's obviously keeping them for us, which in itself is a mark of respect to how tough a game he realises that it is coming to our place.
No one likes coming to Livingston to play, regardless of the form we're in. Obviously, we've looked much more like ourselves against Motherwell. Can we cause an upset? I don't see why not. If we take that kind of attitude that we had on Wednesday night into this one, then we have every chance.
I think it shows how big that point was. If we go into this one, 3 games on the bounce without we haven't won, but if we lost the first 3, lost last night, didn't get the rub of the green, then you sort of go into this one thinking damage limitations kind of, but now we sort of have a wee bit of confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Rangers have had a pretty comfortable start to the season. They've not came up against, Aberdeen were pretty lacklustre. I know in our sort of season predictions, Callum, we put them third, but they were pretty dreadful.
You guys put them third.
I didn't put them third, put Hibs third.
No, I'm pretty sure you put Aberdeen third.
You did put Aberdeen third.
Did I?
Yeah.
Because I was astounded that
you did. You and absolutely hounded us both for putting Aberdeen third.
Fair enough.
So yeah, anyway, so they've had a pretty comfortable start, and then obviously 2 home games against St Mirren, St Johnstone. I think the average sort of possession that those teams had in those 2 games was about 26%. So Rangers are looking after the ball better by the looks of it already. They've got ball players in and around their team now. Hadji's a great signing. I think he'll cause the teams a lot of problems. Morelos, despite his sort of the whole is he going, is he staying thing, started to score goals again. They've got a lot
strength
of
and depth.
Yeah, they've got a lot of threats across. I mean, they've
Frightening.
just signed another 2 strikers, haven't they?
Yeah.
As well.
Boy Kamara Roof's one I'd be quite looking forward to if I was a Rangers fan. He was really good down south in the Championship with Leeds, so I think he could tear the Scottish Premiership up, to be honest, if he gets a run of games.
And the lad in as well looks. I mean,
Well,
his record speaks for himself.
But to see his record in terms of goal scoring is very good. So it's someone they might potentially play up top with, Morelos. Try and combat. Obviously, we're talking about our combative style in terms of being hard and direct.
I don't think Gerrard likes to change that system though a lot. I mean, Celtic did it last year when they went to the 3-5-2, but I think one of the criticisms of Rangers last year was they stayed with that
No
sort
plan
of
B.
4-3-3 kind of. You've got Morelos up top and it's sort of Kent and Hadji in behind.
2 10s almost.
Yeah, like wide number 10. So they've got that 3 sitting, and sometimes maybe they don't need that if they're struggling in a game, or you don't need 3 sort of sitting midfielders. Haribo likes to get forward, but again, I mean, if we sit in and we create that block, maybe a 4-5-1 or whatever, or 5-4-1 even, then we could frustrate them. But again, they do look great. They've got the full-backs Barisic and Tavernier, which I think make them. There's all this talk about Morelos leaving and stuff, but again, they've replaced him. I would say if he left with 2 strikers, I think their best player is Barisic, in my opinion. He's
on form
such a
currently.
threat.
Barisic has looked really good.
Scored a great free kick, didn't he?
The full-backs are basically wingers, and again from the dead ball situation, Tavernier and Barisic.
Can we
But I
play
always
on
think
that?
I think that's always an area you can exploit with Rangers, is because the full-backs get so far forward all the
Absolutely.
time.
Can we force their full-backs back by pushing our wingers further up the park?
Well, maybe if the full-backs are forward, I thought Dykes on the counter-attack, I thought he looked their centre. Well, they've now got Balogun in, but we played them in the League Cup tie, I think it was, September, October time. Unlucky to go out 1-0, I thought.
Dykes absolutely bullied.
Talander and Goldson, yeah. So, I mean, the centre halves are there to be got at. I don't think they've. Well, when I was watching Sports Scene, in fact, okay, albeit the games are at Ibrox, St Johnstone and St Mirren had a couple of chances. I mean, maybe, I don't know, Dykes, is he as good as is he better than Obika? Is he better than Callum Hendry? Maybe he gives them more of a problem.
Do you think Dykes has got a bit to prove in this one? I mean, there was talk during the summer that he was potentially going to Rangers. Rangers were looking to take him, and they've went and signed 2 different strikers.
Which apparently means he's going.
Is it? I mean, I'm not saying at any point Dykes had his head turned or that. I'm not saying that at all. But is this a game where Dykes goes into going, right, I need to prove that they should have signed me?
I think it's the type of boy that Dykes is.
Yeah.
I think he has that sort of personality going, I'll show you that I'm better than the boys that you've just signed type thing.
And the game's on TV.
Yeah.
God knows who could be watching, I'm not saying I want the guy to go, obviously not, but you want him to play well, and if he puts a good performance in, Sunday game, no English football on, I imagine a couple of people down south will be watching. So, could put himself in the...
Well, apparently the boys on Open Goal don't watch Dykes because they apparently think he only had 2 good games last season against Celtic. But if you were to actually go and watch the 2 games at Ibrox, Dykes absolutely bossed the centre halves.
The post
in those
as well,
2 games.
unlucky in the 1-0.
The 3-1 game, he bullied the Rangers centre halves, and there's not often you go a lone striker at Ibrox.
Had to go down Greeting and get him sent off.
Yeah, well, literally, they genuinely did. They resorted to that. They were just falling down every time he went for a header. But it's not often a number 9 lone striker goes to Ibrox and bullies the 2 centre halves in the home side. And I think folk don't appreciate how many games Dykes had like that where he just bullied centre forwards last year. But look, I think Rangers can be got at. I think we've been hit or miss at home against Rangers since we've kind of come back up. Obviously we had the 1-0 win when Menga scored, which we were excellent, but then the next game at our place that season they humbled us 3-0.
3-0, yeah.
And last season then you had the cup tie, which I thought, as you touched on, Callum, we were very unlucky not to at least take that to extra time, but then the 2-0 game we really weren't at it.
Yeah.
And I mind Holt was quite disappointed because he kind of knew we weren't quite at it. But you can't afford not to be at it against the old firm. But I think,
to be fair, I don't think we can afford to not be
yeah,
at it
against anyone.
anybody.
Obviously, but I think that performance on Wednesday is going to give the players a lot of confidence, because folk are. It's not, oh, Livy look like they're going to, right, folk are now looking at us going, oh, Livy look back to themselves, type thing. And I just really hope that we take the form, and as you talked about, kind of the hunting in packs and getting in and about Rangers, upset them as much as possible. And if we can do that, we've got a chance.
Before we look ahead to the team and things, we made a new signing. Holt
Rangers
came in.
connection, fair enough. Jason
so
Holt.
funny sort of time to bring him in. He was obviously at Rangers. We've brought him in after his contract ended. What do we think of that one? Decent signing, isn't it?
Great experience, and
he's only 27.
Yeah,
I didn't realise
which
he was
I think's
27.
astonishing. He
Right.
seems like he's been about for years, Jason Holt, but I think he's
100+ Premiership appearances.
Yeah, I think he can play like a number of positions in the middle of the park. You know, he could play, for example, system we played on Wednesday, he could play sitting next to Bartley. I think he's quite similar to Pittman, personally. I think
box to box.
you know, all the comments we were getting when we kind of asked people's thoughts on the signing, and it was just Rangers fans going 100% every week, absolute workhorse, which to me just sounds like our type of midfielder. Don't know if he'll get the nod straight away, because he's obviously not had any games as of yet. I know he's been in training for a good couple of weeks now, 2-3 weeks, but I think if you are one of our other players in the dressing room, you've got guys like Bartley, Ambrose, Holt kicking about the dressing room, and you see where the clubs that they've played at, etc. I think they're high profile guys, and I think you can basically take information from them all the time. I'm sure other centre midfielders we've got will be going to Holt, asking for his advice type thing. I think he'll be that type of guy in the dressing room, and that's no bad thing.
Not much to add on that, to be fair. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I'm really looking forward to it. Again, we touched on it in the sort of season preview. Look at the strength and depth.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
The calibre of player that we are signing this season especially has been fantastic. You know, we are now we're almost, you could argue we're an established Premiership club with that squad we have. You know, we're signing guys like you mentioned, Ambrose, Holt, notoriously good players at this level in the game. It's a bit of a coup for Livingston, let's be honest.
Absolutely.
Bringing guys with that experience into the club, really good sign. It'll be interesting to see how he beds into the squad. But onto the squad, how do we think we're going to line up for this game?
Well, for whatever reason, I mean, it baffles me, but some people will be delighted to know McCrory can't play against his parent club. I
don't get me started. I
don't get the criticism.
I think Robbie's shat in their cup of tea or something like that. Genuinely, some of the stuff that's I've been seeing on Twitter and Facebook and whatnot, I genuinely don't understand what folks' issue is with McCrory. I think he's a fantastic goalkeeper, but obviously he's not able to play, so it'll be Stryjek that's in between the sticks, I would assume, unless he's going to give Gary Malley's Premiership debut.
Do a Twitter poll again. See what happens.
Gary or Max, who do you want?
I think you're right. I'm way you guys. I kind of mentioned or tweeted it about it. I was really surprised when I logged on to his social media and seen the criticism that McCrory was getting after the Motherwell game. I didn't quite see it. I actually had to look back and think what he'd actually done wrong, and even then I couldn't really see anything. Maybe he came off his line a bit quicker than maybe decision making, but even then,
he's a young goalkeeper. He's 22 years old.
Absolutely. I mean, the goals we've conceded this season, can you argue that any of them were his fault?
Really.
Maybe the second one against Hibs, but even that's kind
of defending prior to that.
Even that's kind of pushing
6 yards out.
I think we're really being overcritical. I think the problem he's maybe got is we've been embarrassment of riches of goalkeepers over the last few years in terms of Liam Kelly, Neil Alexander, Sarkic, you know, all really top goalkeepers, and maybe we've just been spoiled a little bit in terms of goalkeepers. I don't think McCrory's much worse than any of them, but yeah, I'm not quite getting it myself.
Kieran Brown, of course, went down injured as well. Maybe
looked like a
could be
hamstring,
out.
which would probably rule him out, I would assume. So it's a question of what he does with the back four, really.
Does he leave it the same that Finn? Well, McMillan came on, but does he leave it the same as sort of who played the majority of the game? You know,
I mean, for me, with the threat Rangers have in the wide areas, in terms of, you know, for example, Barisic going down that side, I think you need a natural right back, and I think you'd ideally put Devlin and McMillan, who've got a bit of pace as well, in that area. And again, I would look at the other side, and you know, Taylor Sinclair played the majority of the game the other night, but I would maybe look at putting McMillan on that side again for just that bit of pace and the full back areas. So if it was me, I'd put McMillan, Devlin either side. Just purely for the fact that they've got that bit of pace.
Does Aaron Taylor Sinclair deserve that though?
Don't know, but I think he's one that we've, you know, since he's signed, he's really kind of played. When we've had a midweek game or something like that, he's really played 3 games in a week, for example.
Yeah.
So, that's what I would do as a tactical view on it, and then for me, it would be Guthrie and Ambrose would be the centre half pairing.
that's the thing I sort of wanted to touch on earlier with the Motherwell game. Okay, we played a 4. Do we go back to a 5? That's sort of the decision that needs to be made. But I think we probably have to credit the management team, because they could have been persistent with that 5. They could have been stubborn and go, no, it'll come good, it'll work eventually. And you know, after 2 games, probably disappointed to maybe change it, because I imagine going forward they'd have wanted to play that 3 at the back. But I think we have to credit them sort of they took criticism for it. You know, you'd seen on social media folk were fuming with this 3 at the back, maybe quite rightly so, but I think credit has to be given for going to the 4, because again, as I say, they could have just easily gone, what do you know?
Yeah, it's easy to be stubborn and go, nah, I'm just going to stick with that, it'll come good type thing.
Exactly.
But I think they noticed how, especially the Hibs game, how poor the performance was, and I think they more made the change to get back to basics, and kind of what we were doing last year, and get a bit more familiarity.
Gary Holt said it as well. You can play whatever formation you like.
Oh, folk aren't at it. It doesn't matter what system you play, and I totally agree with him on that. And the fact is, the first couple of games we weren't bang at it, so that will make the system look worse. But
these are the games we turn up in, aren't they?
Yeah.
These are the games that we relish.
Over the years, it'll be slightly different this year. Obviously, no crowd. But I don't know how much that's affecting us. You know, a lot of our play was built on having that big atmosphere and those big away crowds that are sort of pushing us on to do better in front of the Sky cameras or the TV cameras. I don't know how much that's playing a part in terms of not having fans at the games.
Be less vandalism in West Lothian, hopefully.
Maybe not on the hill.
Maybe not.
There'll be folk on the hill again, won't there?
Yeah, definitely.
The Bears.
If you had to choose a key battle in the game, then what would it be? You've obviously we've already mentioned the wide players for Rangers. Do you see that as the key battle, or is there another battle there that might
Dykes
turn
and
the
Goldson.
game?
I mean, I think maybe you look at the middle of the park, Bartley maybe doing a job on somebody like a Rebo or Jack could help us out again, but for us defensively, you've got to look at, I think, their wide players.
As you touched on, that could be the reason we maybe go to a 3 again and play 5 across, because as you say, they've got like 2 numbers. They don't play as wingers, they play as like 2 10s, quite fairly central coming in, and that might provoke us into playing a 3. But it'll be interesting to see how we set up, to be honest. I was hoping we went to a 4 at the back for the Motherwell game, but again, we could change it just for a tactical sense of things. But I think the wide areas in terms of Kent and Hadji, and then you've got Barisic and Tavernier on either side, I think they sort
of tuck in and the fullbacks overlap, so again, that could be a reason to play a 5 maybe. But
is that how we stop Rangers then? I mean, obviously you're going
to get slaughtered for saying go to a 5.
Listen, absolutely, we're obviously going into the game as underdogs, and we've just played well with that, going back to the 4-2-3-1, but we have changed in the past for these big games in terms of flooding the midfield or flooding the defence and frustrating them, and it's always paid off.
I mind the Celtic game, the 2 each game, and particularly in the first half, it was quite evident because it was quite end to end. We almost seemed to play like a 3-6 across the midfield, but as soon as we got the ball, the 2 most wide players just sprung out and they were constantly in support. I don't know if that's something we maybe look at doing. I think we played something quite similar at Ibrox. The last game they kind of beat us 1-0, but we were probably worthy of something that day, in my opinion. But we played something fairly similar. We've, as you say, flooded the midfield, and when we did get the opportunity to spring off the dikes, the guys who were furthest wide just sprung. So I could see us being quite tactical for the game on Sunday to try and stop their threats.
I mentioned them right at the start then. Is this an ideal opportunity to give Holt 60 minutes with that experience?
Could be, yeah. Could. I mean, again, he could be, you mentioned Dykes, Holt could have something to prove maybe, sort of released by Rangers or not given a contract, however you want to look at it. Spent 5 years at the club, he'll be going, why'd you get rid of me? Here I am, you know. Sort of, as you mentioned earlier as well, hard worker type of midfielder that you'd love in these kind of games, and again that experience with Bartley and Effie Ambrose as well, sort of playing in the big games over the years. But yeah, no, Holt would be a welcome addition. It's just, you know, maybe fitness wise,
yeah.
He won't. I think it's
quite a big game to go and throw him in, isn't it?
Yeah, I think his last game was actually against us, that St Johnstone game before the.
Right. So you mentioned it a bit earlier. The pitch.
Hope we don't want it.
Always seems to crop up in this fixture.
Hope we don't want it.
What we're thinking? Extra pellets.
No water.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and even lift some of the panels up so they're sticking up a bit. Like,
it's a go-to excuse every time for Rangers. Isn't it?
Rangers should be beating Livingston. Rangers and Celtic should be beating Livingston on concrete in Asda. I mean, there's just an excuse.
Fact,
look at the budget.
Yep.
How's their pitch not an advantage when we go to them? How's their 60,000 whatever fans they claim to have an advantage? You know what I mean? So
claim to have.
So going into the game then, we've gave a rundown of the opposition. We've looked at the threats. We've looked at how to stop them. We had a good performance against Motherwell, but Rangers have been very good as well. Predictions. We've not been very good at this so far.
Yeah, we don't have any points on the board so far.
We've not been very good at predictions, but we'll go again, as we always do. Callum, let's hear your prediction first then.
Well, I mean, let's just point out that I've got game in hand, arguably, for not having
not
having done a Motherwell prediction. But I think we'll put up a good fight, but I think they'll edge it 1-0, unfortunately. So, I mean, that's a Livi win then, isn't it? Because I've predicted that.
Well, to be fair, at least you just got right down to your prediction this week and never give us a story.
That was a roller coaster of emotions.
Well, I don't want to say it.
That Martin Lawrence's story.
I don't want to say we're going to win every week and then have us winning 38 out of 38 at a final league table.
That one top trumps your Alan Preston story, to be honest.
That's a great story, that.
Ewan, what are you thinking?
I'm going to be positive. Again?
Shock.
I'm going to be positive.
Lawrenson.
Nah, I think we'll gain a lot of confidence from that performance on Wednesday, and I think we're going to be a right bunch of bastards to them on Sunday, and just be our typical selves and get right in their faces. I was going to be very positive, but I'll be mildly positive and say 1 each.
I'm pretty sure I predicted you to say 1 each as well on my little graphic.
Don't get any points for that, mate.
No, this is true. Well, listen, I was compared to Adrian Durham during the week.
Pretty bang on, to be honest.
So
in terms of,
apparently I'm the one that causes controversy. I mean, I've not seen it myself, but apparently so.
You should see what he's wearing. So.
I know, he gave a critique on folks' kits, and you should see the neck of his clobber.
Aye, okay. Prediction wise, I'm going to go, I think we'll put a good fight up. We'll battle well, but I think Rangers will probably just be too strong for us. 2-1 Rangers, I'm going to go. But like you say, Callum, it might mean we win the game, because we've been predicting wins for the last 3 weeks. So let's hope we get a positive result against Rangers, really prove a point that we're back, and let's get the season going. That's it for this midweek review and preview edition of Talk Livi. Thanks as always for tuning in and giving us your support.
You can find Talk Livi on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram by simply searching for Talk Livi. You'll find all the links to this episode and all of our previous episodes over there.
You can find all of our other episodes on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube. Search for Talk Livi over there and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head over to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you will find every single episode that we've ever done.
Thanks again for joining us here on Talk Livi. We'll be back on Sunday evening to take a look back at the Rangers game, plus much more. Make sure you tune in then. But for now, from Callum, Ewan and myself, enjoy the rest of your week.
West Lothian is our battle cry. This is the place from which we hail, Livingston.